you very much for that introduction and the warm welcome. I'm very happy to be here in Mumbai again. I call this my home away from home, where I feel I live in a village that I visited every year almost since 1975. My late husband was from Mumbai, and his family home is now the National Museum of Indian Cinema, where you won't see any Sidis yet, but we're hoping to see something happen in the future in that way. As an American growing up during the civil rights movement among Quakers in Maryland and experiencing that movement in my own life, I was deeply affected, seeing the isolation and discrimination, the prejudice and poverty and lack of education of the Sidis, their low social status, and their virtual segregation from mainstream Indian society. It reminded me eerily of America before the civil rights movement. Sidis had lived in India virtually as slaves for over 1,000 years, and yet they experienced and shared great joy in their spiritual life and their social life. According to the Ahmedabad Chronicle, quote, the first Muslims in Gujarat are the Sidis via the Bharuch port in 6 CE. The major group, though, arrived in 712 CE via Sindh and the north. With the founding of Ahmedabad in 1411 CE, it became the concentrated base of the community. So I became intensely interested in the Sidis and their culture, especially their retentions of African music and culture, as well as their social and economic status in India. That's when I prepared a proposal for a senior research fellowship to the American Institute of Indian Studies to study the music and rituals of Sidi African Indians in Gujarat and Mumbai. And all of the collections that I made during that research are in the archives of the Research Center for Ethnomusicology in Gurgaon. So let's talk about Sidis and Sufism, because as you know, Sufism is a highly diverse form of Islamic practice, probably part of the origins of Islam, as Professor Niall Green believes. Sidis are the African Indian mystics of Gujarat. Next slide, please. What is a Sufi? It's an Arabic word which literally means ones who wears wool, but it's an exonym given by others. It's a mystic strain of Islam, just as mystic strain of Christianity, based in spiritual love and organized who follow different paths or tariqas with different stages called maqams, achieved through training and blessing. Next slide, please. So who are the Sidi Sufis? Well, Bava Gor, you heard of. Sidi Mubarak Nobi was his original name, a Black African who came from Nubia. He was initiated in the Rifa'i Sufi order in Basra, Iraq in the 14th century. He became a merchant of agate in Gujarat, India, and initiated others in the Rifa'i order. He died in 1383 in or near Ratanpur, where his dargah is still maintained by Sidi African Indians and Sunni Vora Muslims. Next, please. This is a shajra, or spiritual genealogy of the Rifa'i Sufi silsila, a tree or a spiritual lineage in Baroda, Gujarat. Bava Gor was his name, meaning the saint of deep meditation, but he was literally known first as Sidi Mubarak Nobi, according to the Mirat-e Ahmadi. He was initiated by El-Sheikh Baba Kambar Nuri. The line in the Shajra reads, Al-Sheikh Baba Kambar Nur, the top center thin red circle, led to Al-Sheikh Baba Gor Mubarak Nobi, the thick red circle, who trained Mama Mishra from Egypt, mother, Mama, thin red circle, with which she had no disciples because women were not permitted to create disciples. But other disciples of Bava Gor were Baba Habash Khan Ghazi and Sayyid Hilal Darbari. This photograph of the Shajara, I thank Dr. Sophia Pequino in Paris, in France. Next, please. So he's known now as Bava Gor, meaning grave instead of deep meditation. Instead of saying Gor, we say Gor. And he is known to be a blessing to all who follow him. Now, the Mirat-e-Ahmadi I mentioned, this treatise, is a political and statistical history of Gujarat composed by Ali Muhammad Khan, an imperial Devan at Ahmedabad. It was completed in the 1750s. The original Persian text comprises 2 volumes and a supplement. It was first translated into English by James Bird, which was published in 1834, and then by M.F. Lokhandwala, which was published in 1964. The supplement was translated into English by Syed Nawab Sedan. In an Arabic history of Gujarat, it states that after Muhammad Shah's death, Muhammad Khalji visited the tomb of Bava Gor in 1451, and this is the first known reference to Bava Gor in the historical record. So where do we get the Sidi identity? There's a wonderful article, Music and the Formation of Sidi Identity, by Dr. Helena Basu, and published by Oxford University Press. Bava Gor and Bava Habash and my Mishra are considered by Sidis as part of their identity as their ancestor saints. And the Goma or Dhamal, the dance and drumming, as in spiritual settings, is a unifying cultural and sacred trait which is central to Sidi identity. Now, a new article called From Africans in India to African Indians was written by 2 Polish scholars and published just 2 years ago. It is now being translated to Gujarati for the Sidis to learn and share so that they understand how they came to Gujarat, not necessarily directly, but by secondary migration, partly even from the expelled Habshis of the Bengal Sultanate, who found refuge in Gujarat, probably seeking other Sidis who were already living in Gujarat. So this will be fascinating to the Sidis there because they're really trying to understand who their ancestors might be. They're very interested in this, just as we all are. This article you can find on academia.edu, and I think you'll enjoy reading it. Next, please. This is the cover of the journal of the Faculty of International and Political Sciences of the Jagiellonian University in Poland. This is the book we published after the Sidis and Scholars Conference. It was actually a conference called Sidis at the Millennium in 2000 in Rajpipla, Gujarat. Essays on African Indians, edited by me and Edward A. Alpers, an Indian Ocean expert at UCLA, historian. After we had the conference in Rajpipla, which was attended by about 400 Sidis and several foreign and Indian scholars, I asked the Sidi Goma performing artists of Goma, why do you world? Because I'd invited them to do other projects with us. And they said it's because we want to see the world and we want to share. And we don't need to go so fast through the slides. Yes. Okay. So they wanted to enjoy and share with international artists their sacred heritage that they received from their ancestral Sidi saints. So it was their dharma. And they wanted also to benefit economically from their performances in the tradition of wandering fakirs, as they had been doing for centuries in India. They were very clear about these objectives and didn't seem to be worried when I voiced concerns about the things that might go wrong in such an ambitious undertaking. I was worried about the divisive effect it might have on the community because of jealousy, because not all of them could go on the tour, just 12 were allowed. And the dangers of commodification and commercialization of their traditional sacred arts and other pitfalls of foreign tours. But they assured me and Rifa'i Sufi that these things would not happen to them, that they would be blessed by their saints, and that this was their sacred duty and their sacred joy, which is the gift that they received from their ancestors, the gift of joy, sacred joy, that they share with others. So Nazir Ali and I agreed to collaborate with the Sidis to survey the state to identify the best Sidi musicians, singers, and dancers for the tour, and locate musical instruments, arranging for instrument repair when needed. Dr. Helena Basu helped to translate our documentation survey sheets into Gujarati, and a team was formed to conduct the survey during our absence. We returned a year later and found the forms partially filled out, and we completed the rest with Abdul Hamid Sidi, our assistant, who's now living in the United States as an American citizen, as he supports his family back in Gujarat. We also deposited funds into the Rajpipla royal family's office to disperse for conducting the survey and for instrument repair when the team felt the need. When I asked them if I could bill them on such a tour as Black Sufis of Gujarat, they asked, "What is a Sufi?" "We are Muslims." They must have heard that Sufis and Muslims were different. But when I explained that Sufis are Muslims who follow saints and believe in saints, they agreed. Then yes, they said, yes, you can bill us as Sufis because we are Sufis. We believe in our saints. Next, please. So for the tour, I created a CD that we could share with the audiences of some of our recordings that we had made during the survey of India of Sidi music. So it was sponsored by Asian Circuit in London, of England, a tour of England and Wales in 2002. And this is the link that you can listen to the CD with. I don't think we have time right now, but you can take note of this link when this talk is shared, and you can access it online easily. Next, please. So the cover of the CD shows a Malunga musical bow being played with my Mishra rattles, named after my Mishra, the saint, the female Sufi saint of the Sidis, and the Dhamal small drum, and the Musindo medium drums on the right, and the Mukurman large standing drum. All of these are African-based musical instruments, as well as the kayamba, a raft shaker, which is no longer known by the Sidis, but was well known in Madagascar at the time. This is an 1884 painting that I found in a small museum in Kutch. It is now preserved, rescued from the trash can, actually. A beautiful painting with many other scenes of Sidi life in Bhuj, Kutch. Next, please. This is the article, the Sidi CD, Globalizing African Indian Music and the Sacred, in which I discuss the pros and cons of this tour. Then we had another conference that called TADIA, the African Diaspora in Asia, which was held in Goa, in which I gave a talk called The Consequences of International Touring Among Sidis of Gujarat, a developmental perspective using techniques of participatory action research, or PAR, an anthropological methodology that involves the quote, subject of the research, the object of the research, in the actual design of the research and the conduct of the research and the evaluation of the research. And this is a methodology that we've continued to use all along, collaborative. It's very much based on the organization Clodomir Santos de Moraes in Brazil. Next, please. So we created a video, a documentary called From Africa to India, Sidi Music in the Indian Ocean Diaspora, which then ends in the video in England and Wales as we toured with the performers from the shrines of Gujarat. And this is the link which can lead you to the video. I'd like to play you the first few minutes of the video, to give you an idea.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the video link will be posted in a chat for everybody to view.
Yes.
And we just continue back with the slides.
Yes, please. That would be perfect. It's much better to watch the whole thing, actually, instead of skipping through it and watching excerpts. So after we went to England and Wales, we went to Zanzibar, Los Angeles, New York, Malaysia, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Pune, Mumbai. The Ford Foundation sponsored the tour throughout India. And I did accompany on that one, not all of the others. But it was a great experience. And I have to tell you that I learned so much about Sidis traveling with them. At one point, they wanted to learn English. And I said, sure, what would you like to say? And they thought and they said, we want to say, what is the meaning of life? And I taught them how to say that. They spoke in Hindi, of course. And then I said, but what is the answer going to be? And then they got into a powwow and said, the answer is the meaning of life is to make other people happy. So this was the message of the Sidi on tour there. Oh, that's what the CD looks like. And you notice the textile that we used to print the CD was a textile that you see behind me, created by Halima Sidi of Bharuch, Kutch. She had done the bandhani work for a textile Khatri. And when I admired it, when she was dancing to Dhamal, she left the area and came back holding this beautiful dupatta in her arms and said it was a gift for me. So I wanted to honor her by putting it on the cover of the CD and just to show the generosity and the beauty of these lovely people. Oh, let's admit Shuren. Someone, thank you. Slide now. See, these do bandhani work in Jamnagar and other parts of Saurashtra, and we're trying to help them to create more visibility of their bandhani work through the Sidi Cultural Centre that we've formed in Gujarat. Oh, someone wants to know names of some prominent personalities among the Sidis. Yes, well, they're prominent within their own community, quite honestly. But there was a very famous warrior in Pakistan. He was a freedom fighter, and I don't remember his name. Well, okay, someone is asking, well, shall we go to the slides again? I see that the Sidi Malunga project, I see your questions and we'll discuss them hopefully at the end. There are lots of descendants of Sidis in Murud Janjira, that is the royal family, but they are living in Mumbai. They are active in the Sidi Cultural Centre now, and they are the Justinwala. Their surname is Justinwala. They've given the library to the Cricket Club of India, beautiful, and have become interested in the other levels of Sidis, as well as their relatives who are also a royal family of that Janjira family who've migrated to Sachin in Surat district because of the British offered them land in Surat after there was some dispute in Janjira. And now the two families are quite friendly and have been meeting again. So the next slide that you see is the Sidi Malunga Project chapters. This was a sequel to the Sidi from Africa to India documentary. We decided to open up a music camp for the Sidi Malunga, the one-stringed musical bow, which is quite similar to the Brazilian berimbau. The Malunga project lasted about 12 or 15 days in Zainabad, in the little run of Kutch. And we trained 16 young men in the Sidi Malunga because it seemed to be disappearing. And during the camp, we had 5 masters of the still elderly, teaching the Malunga and the sacred lore that goes along with the Malunga. It's considered to be the instrument that Bava Gor played and is used in mendicancy, religious mendicancy, throughout the Muslim neighborhoods of Gujarat. We returned 1 year later and found that a mendicant was doing beautiful musical rounds, and one of his students had taken up the profession and was now able to support his family without working in the chemical factory that he detested before the Malunga camp. So it was a very happy conclusion to his life. Yes, this is the man, the Sidi master who made the Malungas for the camp, Sidi Salam Jafar of Arab Tekra Rajpipla, Gujarat. Next slide, please. Just to highlight that 1 year after the Malunga camp, we returned to Gujarat to follow the progress of the Ustads and the Shagirds, the disciples, online, because the Sidi Malunga project was put online by a Brazilian who admired the parallel instrument, the berimbau and the malunga, and felt that it needed Portuguese subtitles to share with Brazilian audiences. So you can watch that online. It's on YouTube. Projeto Sidi Malunga with free Portuguese subtitles. Next, this is about one of the scenes that you'll be able to watch online, the YouTube. And this is Salim, who dedicated his life to the Malunga for the rest of his life. He became a very proficient Malunga mendicant, just as his father had done. We didn't know this, but apparently it aroused his filial affection, and he was a brilliant singer and spiritual vocalist and actor. Then Wasim Jamadar of Bharuch, who was an educated Sidi now living in Jamnagar, belongs to a new generation of Sidis. I'd like to link. Can you please play this link here? So here we have educated Sidis in Saurashtra because they're entitled to government benefits because they're classified as Adivasis in Saurashtra and in one district of Karnataka.
I am represent to front of you, all of you, my solo performance. This is my instrument. So I hope you like it. So present the Sidi Malunga.
Can you pause it, please? I'd like to call attention to the fact that he's playing a rhythm, da-da-da, which is actually a sacred statement. It is the statement, Allahu Nabiji, Allahu Nabiji, Allahu Nabiji, Allahu Nabiji. So they portray these sacred phrases, zikrs, in the rhythms and melodies of the Malunga. Of course, the Malunga has only two notes. It's a braced musical bow where the lower part of the string is shorter than the upper part of the string. So you have a different interval between the two notes. And that's the principle of the same berimbau instrument in Brazil. So we have a parallel here, and I put them together one day in Los Angeles. The berimbau players of Brazil with the Sidi Malunga players of India. And it was a wonderful event, which I've edited, and it's almost ready to be published. Someone wants to be admitted to the room. Yeah. Thank you, Adil, for your beautiful experience. Thank you. In Sasangir, where they are indeed living as tribals, with Adivasis. Yes, this is Wasim at the Masai Mara in Kenya. He went to Africa. He learned how to make musical instruments there and played with musicians. Next, please. He learned how to make a lyre in African style from Kenya. Wasim Jamadar. And the late Sidi Salam Ghulam Hussein's Malunga and voice were used extensively on a jazz album, contemporary jazz called Day to Day, by a London-based composer and percussionist, Sarati Korwar. Each track is inspired by Salim and Ratnapur Sidi Dargah's passionate devotion to Islam and to their saint Bava Gor, as well as by Salim's suffering and his desire for release from spiritual pain. Their collaboration met with great success. Well, the next slide says, we started the Sidi Literacy Project in 2015 in honor of the United Nations International Decade of Descendants of Africans, 2015 to 2024. And this is a photograph from an article that I wrote in a volume about African descendants in India. 3-volume set. This is a Times of India Mumbai article when I was trying to help the Sidi shrine in Dongri to repair their roof and other problems they were having. I go often to the shrine in Dongri. It is called a chilla. It's a meditation shrine. It's not a real mausoleum, but they do keep 4 of these African musical lyres in the shrine, and they play them during the special rituals. I repatriated the attention to the shrine because much of the research was done here in the Chilla, to Razak Sidi, the son of the Mujawar of the shrine, Raoul Sidi. This was in January 2023. This is with Sri Amrit Gangar, the curator of the National Museum of Indian Cinema and a film theorist, with Razak Sidi at the shrine to my Mishra, which is inside the shrine. I hope you've been to the shrine in Dongri on Tundale Street. It borders on the Khaja Kabristan, shares a wall with them. This is a blurry shot of the inside the My Mishra shrine in Dongri. We then converted the Sidi Literacy Project into the Sidi Cultural Centre Project in January 24. We had our first meeting in March 2024 at the Tribal Museum in Tejgad, part of the Bhasha project of Ganesh Devi, the scholar of tribal languages throughout India. So we have Sidis and scholars meeting again. And the women who attended included Farah Khan, a member of the Sidi royal family of Sachin, descendants of the Sidi royal family of Janjira, and the Sidi women. And this is Sonal Mehta here, the organizer. She's a social worker who works with Adivasis. And Professor Beheroze Shroff of UC Irvine. And Farida Al-Mubrik of Bhavnagar, who has been very active in her Sidi community ever since we had this conference in Rajpipla in 2000. She was inspired by that. And some of the others, including Prince Manvendra Singh Goyal of Rajpipla, who's a great supporter of the Sidi project. And the Sidis used to be part of the Rajpipla, and this Rajpipla family gave the land to the Sidis for the Ratanpur shrine. We were watching the conference from Los Angeles because it was done on Zoom and we had already returned home. This is Gordon and myself. These are the working committees of the Sidi Cultural Centre. We have a community information collection committee of village-wise and district-wise populations of Gujarat. We have a slide for handicrafts and skill development, marketing, and employment committees. We have an information, presentation, and sharing committee for documentation, preservation, and future generations of Zikr heritage. Zikrs are the sacred hymns that are sung by the Sidis. And we have a list of traditional musical instruments coming together, and texts of social history and Quranic history, and there's a committee for social media and a committee for central coordination, and the originators are myself and Sonal and Professor Jasmine Graves, my student at the University of Chicago, Farah Khan of Sachin, Sidi Nawabzadeh, Manvendra Singh Goyal, and Gordon Whiting at newsjunkie.net. Next slide, please. Thank you for your interest in the Sidi Cultural Centre of Ratanpur, Gujarat. We hope to welcome you to our museum one day.
Thank you so much for an interesting talk, Amy. And we are extremely sorry for all the technical glitches that happen throughout the talk. This keeps happening because we are doing it online. Sometimes we are bound to, do mistakes. So please, I am apologizing to all. Coming to the questions, we have a lot of questions in the chat box, and I would want to read them out to you. First is by Gordon Whiting. At what point did Siddhis become Muslims, before or after their arrival in India?
Wonderful. Well, some of them were Muslims from Africa, already converted from the 7th century onwards, 700s. And so it was a process that had many, many factors. There were so many different populations. Many of them became converted on the journey, and some were converted probably after they arrived. There are really not too many records of this, so it's difficult to say But some of them were certainly captive as pre-Muslims as well as Muslims. So
Okay, okay.
it's a mixed situation.
Understood. Were they welcome or at least compatible by any of the Islamic communities in India? That's another question.
Well, Sufis would welcome, but I don't want to call them mainstream Muslims, but Islam went through a lot of changes in its early centuries. It began basically as a Sufi religion, but when the lieges came in and began making rules of following, the spirituality changed to a different type, and it became more authoritarian. This is a very interesting subject, a very deep subject. But Sufism is a part of Islam, and Islam is a part of Sufism. But not all Muslims believe that Sufism is
Right.
legal. It is beshar to venerate a human being, because that is shirk, that is pretending to be God yourself, and this is not allowed in legist Islam. I can call it that. I think that's my interpretation.
Okay, okay. There is another question by Nikhil Verma. He is asking, can we know the names of some prominent personalities among the Siddhis?
Well, as I said, within Sidi communities, they have prominence, but they're so segregated and isolated outside mainstream society. There's a famous one, whose name I can't think of, in Pakistan, who was a freedom fighter in Pakistan, and he's well known there. In India, they're local heroes.
Okay.
And some were freedom fighters also. Some were fought for independence, definitely. But they didn't achieve that kind of prominence outside their own community. It's a question of prejudice, really, and also lack of integration into mainstream society. They're very isolated, still to this day. But there are great heroes in Karnataka and Gujarat as well, who are doing wonderful work.
Understood. So Nikhil says not long ago he tried to go around the city of Murud, Janjira in Raigad, district of Maharashtra, but could not locate a single dissident of the Siddhis who ruled the place till 100 years ago. So where are the descendants
Well,
today?
they have migrated to Bombay, but they still maintain their home. And in Janjira, Murid, the palace is there. You'll see it in my video. In the video, I say that it was being converted into a palace hotel. That's not true anymore. They're maintaining their interest and hope to return to that place one day. So it's being renovated now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Prajakti has asked, does the Sidi music share commonalities to Gnawa spiritual genre reflecting the heritage of North African communities?
Yes, certainly. The Ganawa are bards and reciters of epic poetry and praise songs. And that's very similar to the way Sidis use their music in praise of their saints, Mankabuts, and in praise of Allah, and praise of. So they sing Qawwalis. You'll hear a Sidi Qawwali in the
Right.
video. Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention also that the Janjira family split into a second branch that moved to Sachin, Surat district in Gujarat. And so those brothers split, and now the families are friendly and very successful on both sides. So
Understood.
yes.
So Nikhil has again asked that did Siddhis intermarry in Indian communities or they remain unchanged from their original ancestry?
Well, they prefer not to, because they're very proud of their cultural features and their physical features. And so some of the zikrs that they sing, they proudly say, Kingri Aleval, curly hair, and they praise, praise their features. We have thick lips and we're very proud of it. They're very, yes. So
Right.
they don't like to mingle, but it does happen, and sometimes it causes a family to become less attached to the community. So yeah, so that's why they like to keep everyone together.
Yeah. I hope that answers Nikhil's question.
Mhm.
So Adil has something to share. He said he was very fortunate to visit the Sidi village near Sasangir, where an old driver from Mumbai had come back to his village after he had turned blind due to some illness, and his family very kindly offered him tea made over a wood fire inside their straw and clay hut, and performed some dances with the songs sung by their children. So it was an unforgettable experience for him.
Well, Sufism, the basis of Sufism is love, and that is what distinguishes it from other forms of worship. Love is the foundation, and so it's expressed not just in rituals, but in human relations. Yes, it is a wonderfully heartwarming feeling to be welcomed by Sidis in their midst. That was one thing that attracted me as well, because frankly, we don't experience that too much with the African Americans, because there's a long history of resentment and hatred that's justifiable. So that was something that I always tried to overcome in the United States, but it was difficult. Whereas when I came to India and I found African Indians to be so welcoming, it was a great relief for me.
It's actually great to know all these experiences, the first-hand experiences that you've had. There is another question by Adil that do marriages only within the small community only create any medical issues for them, like marrying within the community?
Um, I don't know of any hereditary. Probably it needs to be studied more. They're not well served medically. We
Okay.
need more medical help, but I don't. I really can't answer that. We need to have more research done.
Understood.
Very good question.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gene pool is still quite broad because frankly, they were brought from many different parts of Africa, not just from East Africa. So that helps.
Understood.
Mhm.
So I don't see any other questions in the chat box. There's just somebody sharing that they happened to see some Siddhis in Sasan earlier this year, and Ganesh Devi was in their university earlier.
Oh, speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And I should also mention, by the way, that intermarriages have been very successful as well. In fact, when we had the conference, one Sidi from Karnataka came. I invited him with his with a leader, a Jesuit, ex-Jesuit priest who was helping. And he asked a question at the gathering: is it all right for a Sidi from Karnataka to marry a Sidi from Gujarat? And everybody laughed. And the Sidi said, well, yes, but what language are they going to speak to each other? Well, Juje actually did marry a Sidi woman from the Bombay presidency type area, Gujarat based, and life together in Karnataka in Bangalore, and they're doing wonderful work for the community. So I hope you'll get to meet him. If you come to my screening of this film at the Bangalore
Yeah.
International Center on the 4th or 5th of January, Sidi should be there with his wife, and we can hear more about his experience.
Lovely.
So
Yeah.
please try to come to Bangalore the first week of January.
Of course, all of us would love to come there.
And we'll have a full screening with a full screen, live screening.
Absolutely. Nikhil has another question for you. He says, did any of the cities convert to any other religion, such as Hinduism or Christianity?
Oh, yes, in Karnataka, their background is slightly different. So some of them became employed in Hindu households in Goa and Christian households and so forth. So when they escaped into the forests, they maintained the religions of their former masters quite often. So there are Hindu villages of Sidis, there are Christian villages of Sidis, and there are Muslim villages of Sidis. And all of them are depicted in my film From Africa to India.
Okay.
So you get to hear some of the music. And I hope some of them will come to the screening and we'll learn more about these communities. Shroff is working more in Karnataka. She's the scholar of Sidis. And by the way, Did you know that many Parsis have converted to Sidi religion in Bombay? There's a Parsi Jilla, yes, in Ghatkopar, which is, during the time of the British leaving India, the Parsis, some of them felt very dismayed and deserted because they had been formed partnerships, and they had to turn for spiritual solace to the Sidi mystics. This is told to me by Beheroze Shroff herself. She was raised as a believer in Sidi religion by her parents. And so she's the scholar who's working on Sidis and makes films about them. She teaches at the University of California in Irvine. And I hope you get to hear her speak one day.
Sure.
And read her writings. She and Sonal have written a wonderful work about the Sidis of Ahmedabad and the Sidi Masjid, the Sidi Mosque, and its history from the point of view of the Sidis, not from the point of view of the colonialists. So this is or even from local Gujaratis. So it's a very important, yes.
Yeah.
Very important article.
Okay. Adil so all of us have loved your talk and the experiences that you've shared. Adil has a message saying, thank you, Amy, for another lovely talk, which he's attending after a long time, having attended many of your earlier talks in person in Mumbai.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Adil. That's very nice to know.
Nikhil says, thanks for the wonderful talk. Would love to watch your film. Jyoti says, thank you so much for this rediscovering talk, Amy. And we would also love to, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and coming to do this talk today on a Saturday evening.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. And also, could you save the chat for me, because I can't find the save button in my chat.
Sure. I will share the
precious
link
comments.
with
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your wonderful attention.